Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Welcome to a special year-end edition of Liberty Nation Radio. On this show, we'll review this year like no other with a panel of authors from LibertyNation.com. We'll revisit the haunting specter of the first pandemic in 100 years and its debilitating effects on the nation and the world. We'll discuss the outbreak of urban violence, the worst in at least 50 years, following the killing of George Floyd, and a bitterly disputed election which has, if possible, left the country even more unsettled. And we'll make some fearless predictions for 2021. Joining me are LibertyNation.com editor-in-chief Lisa K. Donner, managing editor Mark Angelides, and socio-political correspondent Jeff Charles. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with the coronavirus, which hit us in March and has left us a very different nation. Lisa, what will be the legacy of COVID-19 when we recall the difficult days of 2020?
Well, I think COVID-19 is front and center. It really was the tyrant of 2020. The Chinese virus, I think, took the world by storm. And try as he might, the president tried to sort of get the red dragon by the tail, but never really could until just recently, with the vaccine. Not that I'm a huge vaccine person, but I do believe that drove the entire year. And maybe we overreacted and shut down too much. Certainly, a number of governors have done that as well, and are taking small businesses into a hellhole.
Jeff, how has COVID-19 changed the culture? And do you see the impact being more permanent or more transient?
I do think that it has made some changes to the culture, especially this year. I'm not sure how long lasting these changes will be. A lot of it depends on whether or not Americans push back against the left and the way they're going to try to use this. Because even though there's a vaccine, even when the pandemic passes, and we know that the far left is still going to try to keep some of these restrictions in place. They're still going to try to use this virus to enact more big government agenda. So I think that while it may have changed some things, I don't think it's gone on long enough to make permanent changes to American society, as long as the left is not allowed to do what they want to do with this virus.
So, Mark, how would you compare the American response to the coronavirus to the rest of the world?
Funnily enough, despite all the negative press that President Trump has gotten and America's gotten for the numbers, the actual numbers of coronavirus cases, I think it's actually done far better in terms of liberty and freedoms, because you're quite unique in the United States having the system division between the states and the federal government. So, for example, in England and European countries and other countries around the world, when one edict comes down from the government that we're going to lock down, that's it. You can't go anywhere else. You can't think, I got to move out of this state. I can't just go from California to Nevada or to Oregon. You're stuck in your own country, as I have been for the last year. There's no way out. There's nowhere to just say, maybe I'll make a change, unless you're willing to make a change in the very country that you live in. So I think in terms of freedoms, America's actually done a lot better because of how it's constituted.
But without a doubt, liberty has been under fire in the United States, I think more than we have seen in maybe the last century and the one previous, 2020. Without a doubt, I think Americans have seen and have recognized the importance of their liberty and have put it more on the front burner because they see how much can be taken away by people that they have elected.
Do any of you see lockdowns, broad lockdowns in our immediate future? I mean, we've got the vaccine coming and we'll talk a little bit about that, but is there any appetite anywhere among the people for another lockdown?
Speaking from the UK, it was announced within the last couple of days ago that we're actually going to be having furlough schemes and probably intermittent lockdowns until the end of April at least, which is very disconcerting. It seems to me that once somebody has a mechanism of control, once a government has a mechanism of control, they're more eager to use it because they didn't receive as much pushback as they'd thought in the first place. So the second lockdown, which we've just had, it kind of puts a lie to the point of the first lockdown. The first lockdown was supposed to be 3 weeks, and then we'll see the end of the virus. And then, of course, we've got a second one. So the first one didn't work. So why would the second one work? And so now we're going into a third one, and we should have pushed back harder when the first one came in, I think is the lesson to learn.
Now, we have 3 different vaccines that have almost miraculously been developed in the course of 9 months when it usually takes years. But let me start with you, Lisa, on this subject, because most people are excited about the vaccine, but certainly not all of them. What reasons are there to be skeptical about the vaccine and whether each of us individually should take it?
Well, first of all, the speed at which it was produced is a problem. Second of all, you have to understand that vaccines don't all work 100%. And third of all, they're different for every person. I mean, there was a person in Washington State, I believe, or out on the left coast that went into anaphylactic shock as a result of the vaccine. So I personally think it's a very personal decision. I stand against mandatory vaccinations for everyone in the country. But, I think we are looking at a situation where private companies are going to say, you can't use my facility, you can't go to my concert, can't get on my airplane, yada, yada, unless you're vaccinated. And that's going to really, I think, rub Americans the wrong way.
But Jeff,
naturally, that will cut down on the entire illegal immigration to the US because they're not going to let somebody in without a vaccine, right?
well, Jeff, I mean, this speaks to that point, which is that if you don't get a massive percentage of the American people taking the vaccine, then what's the purpose of it? Because people still aren't safe. If some people have the vaccine and others refuse to get it, is the purpose of it then defeated beyond the individual person? You separate the virus from the disease. The vaccine protects you from the disease, but not from the virus, so you can still transmit it. So it all gets pretty muddled up if we only have, a percentage of people that isn't above 90% taking the vaccine.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be slow going. I mean, there's a lot of apprehension, and rightly so, about the vaccine because of how quickly it was created. And I think it's going to be the type of thing where most Americans are going to wait and see. I know there have been some polls and studies done to see if people will take it or not, and it's still not to where we would want it to be, assuming that the vaccine is something that is actually going to work. I know in the Black community, Black people are not trying to take this vaccination, at least not right now. They're basically waiting. They're going to wait until they see other people take it and see that there's no huge side effects, and then maybe some will take it. So I think eventually we can get to that 90% figure, but it's not going to be within the first, couple weeks or first couple months. I think a lot of people are just a little bit apprehensive, and we're just going to have to see how it rolls out. But I don't think that even when it does roll out, that it's really going to do anything about these lockdown orders or what the left is trying to do with it. And I'll talk about that later in the segment. But I do think it's going to be slow going.
Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Mark Angelides, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza, and this is Liberty Nation.
Now let's take a look at the LibertyNation.com electoral leaderboard. It's still 238 for Joe Biden.
What if stories and legends can offer us the key to unraveling the hottest political issues of the day and apply their lessons to understanding the chaos of modern politics?
Impeach 45!
Only where freedom of speech is honored
can people who look, sound, or think differently be truly free?
If you're discussing something that's difficult, the probability that you're not going to offend each other is zero.
President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
Donald J. Trump is now president.
With one click, Liberty Nation delivers tomorrow's news.
And remember, liberty.
Today.
All the time and everywhere.
LibertyNation.com.